Hello, everybody, and welcome to the webinar. This is part of a series of webinars that we run for the Society for Technical Communication, STC, Instructional Design and Learning, SIG. That's the IDL SIG, and if you don't know what SIG is Special Interest Groups. But right now that word has kind of a connotation. So we're super friendly. We are not here to buy your congressman. We are here to educate you. And this is a big part of it. Today we are lucky enough to have Ed Marsh. He is not only a technical communicator himself, but he is also a big advocate for technical communicators. And I want to make sure, if you haven't heard about it, that you visit his podcast series. That's at edmarsh.com/podcast. And he has quite a library of podcasts that are really the content podcasts. He interviews the known superstars in our area, making him the superstar of superstars. So what Ed says about himself, Ed Marsh has always been curious about technology. Even as a kid, he was the one who pushed the buttons to see what happened. So did you break a lot of stuff, Ed?
I got yelled at quite a bit. I broke, I don't know if I broke too much, but I definitely got my hand slapped more than once.
Right. It's, in the text, it says it led to some scolding, but an award-winning career as a technical writer and e-learning developer. So Ed is from New Jersey, and we'll forgive him for that. And
Hey.
I'm also from New Jersey, so anyway, Ed, I'm just going to turn it over to you. My job is to watch the chat window. So everybody, you do have microphone rights. If you want to and you feel comfortable, you can speak to us. Otherwise, you can communicate to us through the chat window. So,
and
5,
I would,
4.
okay.
Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Vicki, for that wonderful introduction. It's so weird to be flattered. Anyhow, as Vicki mentioned, I work for a major financial firm here in northern New Jersey, where there's absolutely nothing wrong with our state. And thanks for joining us today. It's really cool to see a bunch of people online. I'm looking forward to see if, see how this comes out on YouTube. It's going to be very interesting to see all that. So thanks for joining today. First and foremost, let me say this is going to be an interactive conversation. So, please feel free to, interject or ask questions. I know the chat's available. If you want to raise your hand and then have an audio conversation, feel free. I don't want to have this be a one-sided conversation. My podcast is definitely not one-sided. So I like to have this as more of a conversation than me talking at you. So feel free to participate, and if you have any questions. Also, since I am from New Jersey, I apologize, but I tend to talk quickly, especially when I get excited about stuff, and I might get excited here, so please feel free to say, Ed, slow the hell down, because I get carried away. So I hope to moderate my tone, but we'll never know. So with that in mind, here's a little bit about me. I've been a technical writer since 1994. I work at a major financial firm that you've heard of in Jersey City, New Jersey. Of course, I'm a content creator. I have a blog at edmarsh.com. I have content.info, which is a news aggregator for technical communicators and content strategists. Oof, that was hard to say. So you could go there for news. I think there's about 50 different news feeds there. It hasn't been updated with the design in a few years, but it's more than functional. Also, as Vicki mentioned, the content podcast, which is something I started 3 years ago. It was something I wanted to do to get my name out there a little bit more. I knew I didn't want to blog. I also wanted to give back to the technical content community. So I created this podcast, and it's been a lot more fun than I ever imagined. So I encourage you to go take a listen. There was just a release this past Tuesday with Keith Gengili Roberts, who is the DITA writer, also works for Ixiasoft. He's a big DITA person, a DITA evangelist. So it was a really cool conversation. Thankfully, his audio sounds really good too. I'm also a senior member of the STC and the newsletter editor for the NY Metro chapter. I like beer, and online you can find me at Ed Marsh on Twitter. So why are we here? This is the important stuff. Data, it's going to make your life easier. It's going to make your content more user-focused. your management able to track your process, and this is going to be big. Your value to the company increase, and of course your already good looks even better. And I can't see everyone on the recording right now, but I'm sure you're all very good looking, though of course your mileage may vary there. Now, before we get into everything, just a note that I'm going to use this not in the context of learning management systems or technical communication, because I'm sure you have your own internal statistics in an LMS or something that's proprietary, and I didn't want to share anything that I'm not allowed to share either. So the idea behind the presentation is this is kind of freely available information and freely available statistics through most of the online products that we'll show. So just maybe hopefully we could show you some stuff, and maybe you can get some ideas and go back to your teams and say, hey, could we implement this? Is there something we have? So hopefully this will inspire you to start these conversations at your job. First and foremost, though, before we start that, just to let you know that RoboCap, RoboHelp, and MadCap both have analytics products with their RoboHelp server and MadCap Pulse. So if you're already using those tools, might be willing to have a conversation with those vendors to see, if they're helpful for you. If you're not on a web server, you don't have some kind of content management system right now, every single web server on the web has built-in analytics, and this is true for stuff behind firewalls as well as stuff that's publicly facing. So I'm not a big fan of PDFs. I'm not a big fan of using the old chum files or the HTML help systems. So if you haven't moved your stuff online yet into like an HTML-based help, then this might be a selling point with your management to say, hey, we don't have any statistics because we're in this format that doesn't record statistics. So is it possible that we can move to an HTML-based format so we can get more numbers and help you out as well? So this is an example of one of the stats, and let me see if I can bring up, yes, right here. So as much as they say don't do live demos, I'm doing a live demo. On most websites, you'll see in this log section, depending on your administration package, but two of the big ones here are Webalizer and AW Stats. And AW Stats seems to be the most more attractive one to look at. This is Webalizer here, and this is overall stats from my website. So you can see that it has a presentation, a bar graph presentation. It gives you the number of information, hits, and stuff like that. This is the same information in AW Stats. So you can see it's a little bit nicer, it's a little bit cleaner. This allows you to drill down here on the left-hand side. And you can get a lot of information about, what's coming here, what days of the week are hitting, when people are hitting stuff, where they're coming from, a lot of this stuff. So this is basically, this could be a great entry into, the statistics, even if you don't have a lot of buy-in from management. It's like, oh, we already have this information. Can our tech teams pull this down and, give us some more of this information so we have better guidance? So does anyone have any questions about that? Okay, that gave me time to take a sip of water. Okay. They are free stats, like I said. The downside to this is that it's not really exportable. You would really have to take this and copy and paste this down into an Excel spreadsheet, which is possible, but it's not. Unfortunately, with this basic level package, there's no way to export that into anything usable. It's a copy and paste job. And then you can see that we went through this with the live demo. These are different stats. This is the pages that are hit. You could drill down and see. These are a couple of years old, but you could see, how many times these topics have been hit. And, even today, this one, I wrote a story about this in the STC Intercom. This one's been my #1 hit topic for 8 years going on now. So it's really interesting to see, what people are looking for. And of course, that can also lead you into, conversations about what's performing, what's not performing. So don't forget that low performing content. You can use this information to see why is it not performing? Is it that it's obsolete? It's no good? People can't find it? Is it, out of date? These are kind of things that you think about, is that, management always wants to see, oh, what are the top number of hits? What are people hitting? But you have to, as the content managers, have to really think about, well, is this stuff cluttering up my content? Are people getting false search results because we have a topic in here that people keep hitting and it isn't the right topic? So can you rewrite it? Are there different things that you could consider with well, not only your top performing content, but your low performing content? I see Kay has a question here. Are these separate tools or built into something? How do you access them? That's an actually very good question. So let's go back here, and we'll go to the stats page. So this is where doing this is really easy. This is for my control panel for my website, edmarsh.com. So this is my web host is called A Small Orange, and I pay them X amount of dollars per month to host my website, which is my blog site, my pages, my podcast, all that stuff around edmarsh.com. So that's built into the web server. So if I go to my admin login page, this is something, this is called cPanel, which is a popular, management tool for internet, internet ISPs. So you would go here, and your company may or may not have an interface like this, but that would be a conversation you would have with your tech team. But you would see here that this is basically the control panel for running my website. And if you go down to this log section, it has these options for Webalizer and AW Stats. So with the RoboHelp products, that's a separate product that you would access. But all this is basically accessed through a basic web browser. It's all web-based, whether it's internal or external. You'll have a URL to link to that can show you these stats. For example, here you can see that this is my pathway for my instance, but you would have to talk to your tech team. AW Stats, I see, Ronald. I don't believe that's from Amazon. I believe it predates Amazon. AWS is their web server instances, but I don't think that Amazon created. I believe it was actually created. AW Stats was created long before Amazon was actually in existence. So we could probably Google that and look it up on Wikipedia, see the history of it, but I think that, I don't think that they're related. Okay, so if I go back to here. Okay, hello, there we go. Okay, so, okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about here is Google Analytics. And if you are fortunate enough to have a outside facing website, like a internet facing website, then you're really in luck here. Some companies will not allow this because it's basically you have to copy and paste in code from Google, and then that information goes outside your company to Google. So if this is something that you're interested in, you're going to want to check with your IT departments to see if this is something that you can implement. If you're again, if you're internet facing, then you may have this information already. Your marketing team may have this, your sales team may have this already. So it might be worth to have that conversation. So again, this is kind of the page that this is kind of the code that you have to paste into your pages to get Google Analytics to work. But if you're using something like a Flare or a RoboHelp that has templates, you could put this in your master page or a template page and just have that called every time, so you wouldn't have to embed this every time. You could also do the same thing if you're using something like WordPress, which is a blog software, and then you could paste that into those template pages as well. And it's just a huge amount of information. So basically, if you're using any kind of HTML-based help system, you could implement this by copying and pasting this code in. But just again, if you're behind a firewall, or if this is going to be going out to a client, your clients might not like that their web servers are going to phone home to Google. So you might want to check all that before you think about going into this. But the amazing thing is there's a ton of information here, and we can go into a lot of what's here, and it's actually, this has been redesigned recently, so maybe we can go into a live demo, another live demo. But what's interesting is if you look at this screenshot, this is actually from my Android tablet, so it looks the same no matter where you are. So you can get this information, on your phone. Some things will have apps. You can get this information right on your phone. You can get it in any browser, basically anywhere at this point. So that's pretty cool. And what's nice about this is you can drill down, you can see, where your users are coming from. How are you getting it? Are you getting anything from social media? Are they getting it through search? Are they referral means if it's coming from another site? Like, for example, if IDL SIG was linking to my site, I could say, hey, that's a referral, and someone came to my site through the IDL SIG site. Direct means they typed in my website directly. So for example, this is probably someone could type in edmarsh.com/podcast and go there directly. So there's a lot of information there, and then you can drill down even further into this. Does anybody have any questions before I move on to the next page? Okay. So again, you can see here, this is their behavioral overview. You can see how many page views you're getting, how many unique users you have. The average time on page, all that AdSense money I'm making from 2 cents of, on my website, and you can kind of drill down and see where people are going, and what individual pages there are. So you can see here on this slide, again, this is my #1 hit. You can see all these, what people are hitting, and kind of glean that information. So I see Ronald has another question. Is it possible to get certification in this? That's an actually interesting question. I don't know of anything in the tech comm space where you could go for statistics like that. If you are interested in Google Analytics at all, even actually if you're not, there's a lot of information there on their help pages and in their documentation on kind of, how you can implement this stuff and how you can get things to perform better. Maybe Vicky, we can send out links after this with maybe some information. But I don't know of anything certified. You might want to check the content marketing world. I don't know if they have anything like this, but there is a very big social media advocacy community, and there's people who do this for a job. So I don't know if they have certification, but it might be something to look into.
We will definitely include links in the, you're going to get an email when the webinar is over, and it will have a link to the YouTube recording, and it will have a link to the podcast, and maybe it will have a link to more places to find out more about analytics and certification.
So just before we move on, this is a live view of Google Analytics. You can see it's much cleaner, it's much nicer, it's very attractive. But again, this is kind of just a dashboard page that you can customize. And what's nice about this is that if you are, you can customize this dashboard for your usage, where if you don't really care about AdWords, you're not using AdWords, you can remove this. Or if you're looking for retention, or the other neat thing here is that you could see is behavior flow, and you can see where users are coming into your site, where they're dropping off, and how many people are going to each individual information. So if you're looking for, okay, user comes to my help system, they start with this topic, and then they drill down to this topic, and this topic, and this topic, or you can see where they fall off and drill down to each one of those. So you see, you can highlight traffic through here, and you can say, okay, they went through here, then they went to this page, then they they dropped off. Then we had 53 drop-offs here. So most people came and looked for this podcast episode and then left. And then there's, why is this not working here? Clear highlighting. Okay. And you could see that people here drilled down from my home page to the podcast page. Someone went to my about page, and then they went and looked at this technical writing example page. So you can kind of see how your users are using your content and using your website. And that could be really helpful to give to, your management to say, hey, we need to focus on this, this, and this because our users are looking for this and we don't have any information. So that's something that you can implement if, any sort of analytics that you can give to management, I think is really helpful. Our next information is about WordPress. So before I move on, do we have any other questions?
Ed, I just wanted to say that I have been able to get Google Analytics to run behind a firewall.
Okay.
So it is possible. I had to Google it to find out how, but it is possible.
Yeah, it is possible. It's just, whether or not your company or your client's company is willing to take on that risk or have that information going back and forth to Google. So, it's kind of more of a security issue than a technological issue. So that's something to consider with all this. Is that okay? Do we want Google to know about our content? Does management want to know, what's the risks of putting this out there, kind of thing? So that's something to think about from that perspective. Okay, WordPress is probably now the #1 blog content management system on the web. I know there were several other content management systems that are out there. I was active in the Drupal community for a long time, but I believe that WordPress has eclipsed Drupal as the #1 web server. So I think actually whitehouse.gov used to be on Drupal and has moved over to WordPress as well. So interesting to see that trend. But if you have a blog or you're thinking about starting a blog for your company, this is software that you could look into. It is free, but again, you have to look with your IT departments to get this implemented and see if there's any risks behind it. But this is something that could give you some ideas in terms of, hey, do we want to have a blog to augment our traditional content? Is there a way that we can use the blog to point to our content? Think about that in that content marketing kind of space. Where can we use this kind of tool to enhance what we're doing or add some more value to our users? You could use something like a wiki, like Confluence will do blog kind of stuff as well. Then you have that commenting functionality. So certainly something to think about as you move your content forward. So this is, this is a couple of screenshots of the WordPress dashboard, and I'll just go back here to this because this is the newest version. And again, you can see there's a ton of information here. And right off the bat, what you get is statistics. Okay, hey, we've got, the top post for this week, the top each page, each day of the week, and how many hits there are. You can see that I published on Tuesday, and there is a big spike in hits because I've sent out social media and because people came to the site to listen to the podcast, essentially. It, of course, dropped off the next day. So these are the things that you follow and say, okay, I know that this was a release and it was a release day, so it was a big day. I also know that we put out some things here and some people have retweeted, so that's probably why we have a good number here. And you can see it's dropping off again because I haven't really promoted it today. So things to see, and maybe if you do this with your websites or you have some statistics on your online help, you could say, hey, launch day, we could really get nailed, or hey, we expected a bigger hike on launch day. Why not? There's a lot of information there that you can think about using. And then you can drill down here. You can see also this is Blueberry is a podcast statistics package. It's a website that you can use, and you can see here right at a glance. This is now I've got 8,600 hit or 8,600 downloads. There's 7,000 unique, and it gives you all that information. So there's just a bunch of stuff here that you could drill down into, and you can see. You could view also these on WordPress, but you can see the pages that they're hitting. You could see, other clicks that people are hitting. So someone listened to Keith's podcast and then linked out to this Ditto worst practices presentation that he's done. Looks like someone went to Amazon. So thank you for that link click. And you could also see where you're getting your information from. Today, I got one hit off of Facebook, one hit off of Twitter, someone off of LinkedIn, and then looks like some people hit me off of Google as well. So you could see that this might be information, and you could drill down even further here. And you can see, this is obviously the first day. There's not a whole ton of information here, but you could see, how many people are hitting each individual page. So that might be another way that you can provide some value to your company, a way to think about your content in a different way, and then say to your management, hey, this is this is being used X amount of time. This is, and then you can get buy-in, or you can say, well, okay, this is a good experiment. Maybe it didn't work. Maybe we go back to something else. So those are the things to think about if you're considering doing some sort of blog. And of course, you can also drill down here. You can see what countries. We've gone through a lot of this, but you can see what countries you're coming from. And then this is another neat thing about WordPress, and I know it's probably not feasible for most people in TechCom, but this is something that I've actually written a blog post about, and we'll have to add this, Vicky, too, because it made me think about writing in a whole different way. This is a plugin called Yoast SEO, and SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. If you've ever heard that term, it's basically, in a long story short, it's how do I get my search rank or my pages to the top of Google search. So what's nice about this is it has a readability tab and a keyword tab, so you can see, exactly, any kind of problems that you would have. And it gives you information about passive voice, and you have too many keywords or not enough keywords, or it looks like you're missing an alt attribute on your images. You've never used these keywords before. So this can really help you think about writing. It can also help you enforce consistency on your writing teams. So let me go and see if I have that real quick. This is what was I doing there? Okay, Yoast. So we go back to the home page. And you can see there's a stat right here on Yoast, and it tells you, you have 5 pages that need improvement, or okay, you have good or one without a keyword. So most of these are before I implemented this. So I'm not going to go back and redo my site, but you can go and see, for example, here. Vic, are you chiming in?
Oh, sorry. I was looking for I went to your site and I searched on Delhi, and I found it right away.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we do have some. Ron has a question about what are stop words.
I have no idea. I know if you go to that help system, and let me duplicate this tab real quick, that you can go back to the dashboard. And I believe if you hover over it, it'll tell you. Actually, let's go to a post, because I think it'll probably tell me here. So let's go to the most recent one and go to edit. And then here's the live preview. And you can see, okay. My focus keyword is, okay, so it says here, to select for this page contains stop words. So you can click a link and it links you to this stop words thing, which is, okay, they're filtered out before and after processing of natural language. So probably, words like the and things that really aren't going to be effective keywords. So they're probably saying, okay, you've got too many of those non-keyword words in your information, so you might want to change that. And what's also cool about this plugin is when it gives you some problems, the ones that you hover over, it'll take you back up to your blog post and highlight where your problems are. And of course, it's not doing it here. But this will show you exactly where you have errors and might want to think about it. And it also gives you your readability here with the Fleisch reading tests. And again, you can say, here's a transition word. And this isn't a good example because these are very short blog posts, but I hope this gives you a good idea of, maybe you can implement this, or you can add keywords, or you can use this to check your readability and make sure that you're not using long sentences or passive voice or anything too technical for your audience. So those are definitely things to think about if you want to implement something like this, or if you're looking to implement a blog or some more statistics. And we can link to the that post that I mentioned. Okay, Twitter. I love Twitter. I absolutely love Twitter. I know people are mixed on it. People don't want to know about people's lunches or this or the other thing. But I find that for professional purposes, it's really excellent. You get a lot of news from there. You get a lot of reporters, but you can also get industry news. You can follow people in our industry. So you could do it for research. What are your customers doing or thinking? If you have if your company is public or out there, and you're able to follow your Twitter account, maybe you could see, okay, users are continually having a problem with this particular thing. Maybe we can write some more topics around this, or maybe we can give them some more information. What are they complaining about? What are their pain points? Where can we interject and make the post-sales process as easy as the pre-sales process? And then finally, you could see what others are doing in your field. If you can follow the other companies, their Twitter presence, you could see what they're doing. Maybe they're having links to their documentation, maybe they're not. Is that something that you want to consider? So this is, again, another statistics package. This is analytics.twitter.com, and anyone who has a Twitter account has access to this information. So as long as you access analytics.twitter.com and you're signed into your browser, then you should be able to get this information. And I think I have my live version up here. These have all been updated in the past year since I've done this presentation. It's kind of crazy. So you can see what it tells you right off the bat is, here's your 28-day summary. Here's what's happened over the past month. How many tweets have you had? Are your impressions up or down? How many people are looking at your profile? How many references or how many mentions are people mentioning you? And then how many followers you have. So thank you to all of you who are following me, because I'm up 4. But you can see that then here, this is your highlight for the month. The #1 tweet. Wow, that's a lot. You can see that this earned 17 engagements. So thank you all for joining and clicking the links. So that's what an engagement would be, is, okay, you click the link and either you look for more information or you signed up. So thank you again. And then this one, it tells you the media tweet. So in general on Twitter, any kind of social media, a tweet with a picture or a graphic or an Instagram or a GIF or something always gets more hits than just a plain text one. So they show you that in information as well. And then, I really don't know who BJ Mendelson is. I don't really care that he's my top follower, but for some reason Twitter does. And then of course you can drill down into your entire month. You can see, your top tweets. You can see your engagement, which is, how many people are engaging with your content, whether it's clicking or retweeting, liking, replying, that kind of stuff. And you can see how each individual tweet is performing. And then you could kind of customize and figure out, okay, what is my audience here? Who are my users, which is always the number one question in TechCom. And then how can I tailor it to, to my audience? So, when I started Twitter many years ago, it was certainly more personal than it is now, but I know over the time that I've had my account, it's certainly evolved, and now it's certainly been pretty much my professional facing persona. So I certainly have tried to keep it professional recently. So that's something to think about as well, is what is your strategy if you're going to do something like this? If you're going to have a documentation Twitter for your company, what's your goal, and what's your strategy behind it, and who posts and who's allowed to retweet and who are you allowed to retweet? So lots of things like that to think about.
So you have a comment in the chat box. You want to read it? Jamie Sagan says cool with several exclamation points. How did I not know about Twitter analytics before now? And I'm thinking the very same thing, Jamie. So.
If you look at literally any form of social media now, Facebook has this stuff, which we're going to go into next, I think. Twitter has this, WordPress certainly has it, any kind of blogging platform. I'm sure Instagram might have something for this for professional accounts. For pages in Facebook, there's certainly that kind of information too. So, if this is something that you're serious about, Ronald mentioned, is there certification? I don't know if there is, but there's certainly a ton of information out there on analytics and how to leverage this all across the internet. So I would encourage you to take a look. But I'm glad I enlightened you today, Jamie. Okay, so moving on. This is it. Okay. So Facebook. This is interesting because I mention it not necessarily because you might be able to find information about your customers here, but again, it's ubiquitous and everyone is on Facebook now. It's almost unavoidable, sadly. So if it's something that your company has marketing efforts there, it might be helpful to look into that data as well. If you're a freelancer or a contractor, then this is probably imperative that you get a presence on Facebook if you don't have already. There's something called Pages, and I can show you mine for the podcast. And that should, allows you to reach out to your customers on Facebook, engage with them, get them to like your pages, and they follow you. For example, I'll use an example of a brewery, a local brewery for me. They, Thursday they open up their brewery and they say, hey, here's our stuff for the week, and they put it out on social media and they blast it out to their Facebook page, and then it gets into your feed, and next thing you know, you're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go get their new Hefeweizen this weekend. So, something to think about in terms of that cycle. So you can see here, I really started paying attention to Facebook when I saw my stats on my website using Google Analytics. I'm like, hey, you're getting a lot of hits from Facebook. I'm like, okay, well, I really haven't focused on Facebook other than, telling my friends, hey, there's a podcast out here. So I'm like, okay, I really need to start doing something about this. First thing I did was I downloaded the mobile app. This is the same kind of statistics that you'll see in the web-based version as well. So this will give you that, literally I can launch a podcast and in a couple of hours, see if what's performing or if there are people are sharing it or whatever. So then there's the other side of Facebook, and I know this is kind of iffy, but you could do advertising, and you can you can target users. So what I did, if you see at the beginning of this, the highlighted area in red here, before I did what they call a boosted post, there was 106 people who saw that. So that's basically organic growth, people who are just know about my page and went there, or either following it and then they saw it somehow through Facebook. So then this was after a couple of beers, I'm like, let me try this. And, I threw $5 to Facebook. As you can see here, I splurged. And this was a couple of years ago. This is about 2 years ago. Unfortunately, I did not mean to target just men. I meant to target just men and women. Well, not just men and women, but men and women. That was my mistake. And I've made several since then. So not surprisingly, but you could see, you could target to, I basically targeted here all the tech sectors or the tech cities in the United States. So DC, San Francisco, Portland, Philadelphia, Austin, Seattle. People who match these interests. So you can see, and you could pick this. It's actually really, really granular how deep you can get and how many people you can focus on. So, you could talk about DITA or focus on people who like DITA. I don't know anybody on Facebook who likes DITA, that actually has liked DITA as a thing. But if you want to do that, I targeted you. So you see that afterwards, it doubled my reach. So that was pretty cool. I went from 102 to 205 by spending $5. But advertising has not been very good with targeting for me for some reason. I've tried this several times now, and I did different combinations of stuff, and I haven't gotten any link clicks to my website or my page, but I've had people who like my page or liked my post who don't have anything to do with technical content. So I've done this at least twice, and this has been consistent. I don't know who people are that click like on everything on their page, but apparently these people exist. So that's one of the things that you have to think about is, what's the ROI on this? If it's a business effort, it may be something that you don't want to think about, but, are you kidding me? My phone is ringing. Hold on, sorry. Nope, decline. Sorry about that.
It's live.
Of course this happens now.
That's right.
Yeah, that's why people say don't do live demos. Anyhow, so no, if you want to promote your company, then let me show you my Facebook page for content and kind of give you a different progress. Oh, hello, Bill's kid. Where is content? I've got a notification that there we go. So you can see these are all all my things. People have liked this. Vicky and Tim have liked my link, so thank you all. But this is kind of your page, and this is your standard page for any kind of business. So if you're a contractor, like I said, or a freelancer, or or you own your own company, then you should probably put this together. You can do a ton of obviously a ton of customization here with your graphics and your calls to action, stuff like that. You can see here that reaches up, which is nice. And then of course you can, boost your post, and we can go into here and I'll show you some of the information that you have here. You could preview how it looks on desktop and mobile, and then get all this information, all your, your targeted information, how much you want to spend, how long, and all that kind of information. So, again, if you're a business, this might be something you want to play around with, see if it's worth it or not, see if, if it does anything for you. Unfortunately for me, with a limited budget and just playing around, it hasn't been horribly successful. I've had a lot of people that I don't know like this, like my advertising. So I really don't know. Who these people are who like things without knowing anything about it. So any questions about that before we move on? Okay.
Tim sent you a smiley face.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks for liking my page. Of course, the one thing that we should talk about really quickly, since we're talking about all this social media stuff, is the other side of the coin is you have to maintain and manage all this. So, you might want to consider, do we want a Twitter presence and a Facebook presence and a LinkedIn presence and a web presence and a blog? So that's something, to think about in your overall content strategy. Some of it will probably come with experimentation, what works for you and your business and your company and what doesn't. But, the cost to entry is zero. So you can feel free to play around, and see if you can bring some value to your company, or see if there's some ideas out there that you may not have had before. But just remember that, you've got to maintain all those places, and there is automation. I know that when I release a blog post or a podcast, it automatically gets blasted out to Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook page and like one or two other places. So you could do that automation there, but just be aware that, of course, you've got to maintain it, and you've got to make sure that that voice is consistent across all those media. So let's talk about this. This is support tickets, and this should probably be a gold mine if you're not looking at these already, because this is internal statistics about your company, from your company, directly from your customers. And what I think about, what I find helpful are, I work on internal content, so we have support tickets that are internal. So we know that those are our users and that they're, we know who our audience is. But what's interesting that I found is using these support tickets to understand how our users write and how they think. One of the things that your topics may not be performing are you speaking the same language? Are you using the same common words that they do? Are you using the acronyms that they use in the same way? Are you spelling out the acronyms? Are you using their same language? Are you considering anything that they're spelling wrong? So for example, in the financial services in past years, the Volcker rule has been a very big topic. And we found that using these support tickets, that a person submitted a support ticket and they didn't get any search results because they were misspelling Volcker. So Volcker is spelled Volcker, and that person was missing the C. So they're spelling it Volker, and as a result, they weren't getting any search results back from our online help system. So what we did is we ended up making hidden keywords with those misspellings, which we found through our support tickets. So so that was really helpful. So now even if they spell it wrong, they're getting at least something back. And of course, if on that regard, are there any other keywords? Can you use anything in the metadata to help your users and to add that information to your content to make their time more efficient. Also, some things that I've done is I've read topics and I've seen a whole thread between a user and a support personnel and created a whole new topic. And okay, this person has people love use cases. So it was a use case on, okay, I had this problem, how do you solve it? So might be a way there to generate some new content and hit some of the pain points that your users are hitting. Of course, you can also help your technical support teams. Are there recurring topics that are addressed? They're the people who are taking the phone calls and are taking the support tickets. What are the things that they're hitting every day? What are people complaining about all the time? Is it something that you can address via some content? And of course, you can share best practices and war stories with your support folks, because they're the people who are receiving all those angry phone calls. And no one likes those, no one likes to do that job. It's a very important job, but it's pretty thankless. So, if you can get on their good side, then that would be helpful to both of your teams, as well as your users. And of course, then you create those connections, and what everyone's trying to do now, break down those silos. And it's really worked. We've reached out to our support teams. I've been put on calls because we said we were analyzing support tickets and stuff like that. So now we have those conversations, we have those pathways, and we can address we can address the help and address people's pain points together. Okay, any questions before we move on? Any questions about support tickets? That's a big one. It's a really simple way and a real easy way to, to get information, get some data, and get some information about your users and how they're using your products. Okay. So Google Trends, I think, is one of the last things we're going to talk about, and this is really interesting for a couple different perspectives. If you look at the bottom of every Google page, when you search, it says use searches related to technical writing. This is an information that is a gold mine for you. So, okay, if you search for technical writing, the related example or tech writing examples, books, courses, you can see that can generate ideas. If you're using this for your company, and you can search, okay, problem with blah, blah, blah application, and maybe you could see some related searches to that. What are people searching for? Are they looking outside your company or outside your knowledge base and trying to find information that they're not finding? And hey, maybe you can address that. So that's something to think about, even if you want to create some ideas for blog articles or stuff like that for your company, if you're a freelancer again. That's a real simple way, and on literally every Google page, to think about, okay, what's a different way to write this, or what's a different keyword, or what's a different way to think about this. Again, here's some more information on technical writing examples. We can drill down into Google Trends, and you can see how many times over the past, since 2004, how many times the words technical writing have been searched. And you can also see, you can reduce that obviously by region, you could do it by category, you could do it by date. So you could see that for some reason in the Philippines, technical writing is really, really hot. So if someone's looking for a job, you might want to go to the Philippines, I don't know. And what's cool about this too in Google Trends is it has related topics, and you could see here that you could sort by rising, you could search by all time, you can search by a couple of different parameters, and that gives you hot topics. Okay, what's coming up in, what's a hot topic in technical writing? What are people looking for in technical writing? Or what are people looking for my business? Are they looking for documentation? Are they looking for help? Are they looking for a specific keyword? So those are things that you could see, related topics, different queries, and you could drill down into those as well. And you can see here some more information about what's related to top hits for technical writing, so top related topics. So you can see field of study. Looks like a lot of people are searching and want to start this as a career, and then it kind of gets less important from there. But you can see that these are the top queries that are related to that. So as a result, I went back, when I was doing this presentation initially and doing my research, I was really surprised thinking about those keywords at the bottom of every Google page, and said, okay, technical writing examples is the #1 related link. What can we do to be at the top of that list? So what I did is, and this is in WordPress, and this is something that's baked into WordPress that you can do very easily, is you can create a category based on a keyword. So when you are creating your blog posts, you can input keywords, and that's one of the functionalities in the WordPress editor that you can use frequently used keywords that you have in there. And so what I did was I tagged a couple of pages that I thought were good at writing examples of stuff that I've done, and tagged them with technical writing examples. So then that category gets added to my main site menu. So you can see if you go to edmarsh.com, you'll go and you can see this information, and then right there is technical writing examples. You link to that, and it takes you right to that page. And for those of us that can't put our information out there, or we're restricted, this is a great way to share documentation, to say, hey, this is how I can write. So let's go back to the home page here, and I could show you real quick. So right here on the home page, technical writing examples, bang. And that was simply from looking at Google and getting that inspiration to say, hey, if people are looking for this, let's address it. So you see here that this is a page with, I think, 4 topics. Actually, it's more than that. Why is this? Okay, this didn't link. There we go. So the category archive, the category is technical writing examples, and you can see these are the tags here that you can put into WordPress. And you're not limited to any kind of tags. There's no limitation, so you can use those to your heart's content. But you'll see this is the thing I was talking about with SEO, Yoast SEO. So I thought this is a good example because it's got some steps. Okay, here's a blog post I wrote about YouTube's content reuse. So you can kind of see that this is automatically generated, and it doesn't cost you any effort other than, okay, I have to tag my things the right way and make sure I put it in the menu item. And if you're not a techie person, I bet your tech teams can do something with that. Okay, so any questions about that? Anything about trends and examples? Okay. I think we're running along. So I'm going to go to this quickly. Excel and Google Sheets are your friend, really, if you're a content person. If you've ever done a content inventory, it can be painful, it can be ugly, but you can really use this, especially if you're working with stakeholders, to have everything on one page. This is a template that was created a couple of years ago, and I can provide a link to this, but I've been using it for years. I prettified it as there are uses, but it can be simple as an Excel spreadsheet saying, okay, what page is it? Where is it located? What's on this page? What kind of content type is it? Information like that, and then tracking information. So really, if you want to manipulate your content, this is the way to do it. And then, of course, you could take that one step further and take that raw data and make it what's called a pivot table. And if you ever watch an expert in Excel, use pivot tables or pivot charts, it's absolutely amazing. And this is a simple way that you could take that and visualize your data. You can look in your Excel help or your Google Sheets help. They'll probably have information about that. But what it does basically is takes your data, your raw spreadsheet data, and makes it into a presentable format, which of course is perfect for managers to see, okay, here's our hits, or this is what people are looking for, or this is where we have deficiencies. So that's a great management tool for that. So I think that is all I have to say. I've apparently said quite a bit. So you can reach me, like I said, many times at edmarsh.com. On Twitter at edmarsh, I'm active. I'm there all the time. The podcast, of course, content.info, my SlideShare, and also my LinkedIn information. We'll probably get most of these into the links that we send out afterwards. So I thank you for listening to me. I thank you for listening to me ramble on. I hope you all got something out of this. I hope it inspires you to go back to your firms and explore how you can implement data in your systems.
So before we have the questions, I think we should have a round of applause, everybody.
Oh, please.
Clap into your microphones.
Clap into your muted mics.
Yeah. And you guys, you do have microphone privileges, so if you wanted to, Jamie is, okay, so there's lots of chat box. Oh, all right. I got to guess who that was.
Nice.
Yeah. That was fast and furious. There was so much meat in there, and I made a list of all of the different links that I wanted to send in the follow-up email.
Yeah, I think I reduced this by 5 or 10 slides before I did it today, so sorry if I ran long or spoke too much.
No, you didn't speak too much, but you gave us a lot to think about and a lot of things to explore. I guess I was unaware that when you tag things in WordPress, that sets it up as a keyword. I just thought it was like for an internal search within that WordPress site.
No, and there's a bunch of different things that you could do with WordPress. There's workflow tools. There's a bunch of what they call plugins, which are third-party apps essentially that give you a hell of a lot of functionality. That's how I'm able to do my podcast there, because there's a plugin for it. I was looking to do it on my Drupal site, but it's been too much effort. With WordPress, you just download the plugin, activate it, and you're ready to go. So yeah, there's a ton of information and a lot of stuff that you can do. You can even do a publishing workflow if you wanted to.
Cool. I'm just looking for questions in the chat box. Lots of people saying thank you and clapping. And Jamie says, what a wealth of information. Thanks so much, Ed.
Cool. I am happy to help. If you all want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me. I'm happy to follow up with any questions or one-on-one chats or whatever. So, if anything went by you too quickly, happy to follow up.
That is awesome. So Lori says, thanks for the great info.
Cool.
Well, I'm going to stop the recording, and because maybe somebody's shy and they want to ask a question privately. Let's stop the recording.